They didn't even let her finish folding the towels. "Ms. Rowe, you're done here." Just like that, 20 years of spotless service meant nothing. Zelina Rowe stood in her Navy uniform, the scent of fresh linen still clinging to her gloves, trying to process the words coming from her manager's mouth. "A guest's necklace is missing," he said coldly, "and you were the last one in the room. No investigation, no proof, no questions, just a pointed finger, and security walking her out through the back entrance, like a criminal. She didn't even get to defend herself. She just walked out into the August heat, head high, heart shattered. But what they didn't know was that Zelina had cleaned hundreds of rooms for this hotel, and she'd noticed something odd just 3 days before she was fired. A small motion camera, tucked between the ceiling panels in room 413. It was never supposed to be there. 2 days earlier, Zelina had been cleaning room 413 when she noticed a faint red light above the mirror. At first, she thought it was a smoke detector, but as she stepped onto a chair to dust around it, she noticed something strange. The device had a memory card slot. She didn't touch it, but she remembered it, because when the accusation came, that room number haunted her thoughts. Room 413. The guest claimed her gold necklace, an heirloom, had gone missing after Zelina cleaned that room. Zelina remembered dusting that jewelry stand carefully, even fixing a tilted photo beside it. But she also remembered someone else going in, someone who didn't belong there. Back in her small apartment, Zelina sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling. She called the hotel. They wouldn't take her call. She emailed HR. No reply, but she knew who could help. Her cousin Darnell was a night engineer at the same hotel, and he owed her. She babysat his twins for free every Saturday for a year. "Darnell, do you know anything about a hidden camera in room 413? He paused. "You weren't supposed to see that." "Who put it there?" "The GM. For security. That's what he said. But I think he was watching other things." Zelina's stomach turned. "Do you have access to the footage?" Darnell hesitated, then said, "Meet me in the garage at 1 a.m. That night, under the yellow glow of flickering garage lights, Darnell handed her a thumb drive. "I shouldn't be doing this," he muttered, "but I know you wouldn't steal." Zelina thanked him, heart pounding. She didn't sleep. She went straight to her old laptop, slid in the drive, and hit play. At first, it was just her. She saw herself folding towels, adjusting pillows, tidying the room. Nothing unusual. Then, timestamp 12:18 p.m., someone else entered the room. Mr. Caro, the assistant general manager. He looked around nervously, opened the guest suitcase, and pocketed something. Zelina pressed pause, zoomed in. It was the necklace. Her hand shook as she watched him leave, locking the door behind him. It all made sense now. Mr. Caro had always been smug, always quick to handle staff problems quietly. And now she realized this wasn't the first time he'd done this. She remembered whispers. Other housekeepers being let go, no reason given. Some even deported. Zelina saved the video under a new name. Room 413 Justice.mp4. She didn't go to the hotel. She went to someone else. Someone her late sister used to work with. Attorney Kenya Blake. A woman who specialized in wrongful termination and pattern discrimination. Kenya watched the video in silence. When it ended, she leaned back in her chair, then said, "Zelina, I've been waiting for a case like this." 3 weeks later, the hotel received a subpoena. Zelina never heard from them directly, but word traveled fast. 2 other housekeepers reached out to her, one with a similar story, one who had video messages saved before she was fired, and one who had been too scared to speak until now. The lawsuit grew. What began as one accusation became a class action storm. The media picked up the case. Hashtag Justice for Zelina started trending. Guests began canceling bookings. The hotel's rating dropped overnight. And Mr. Caro? He resigned quietly, but not before a second camera was found in the staff-changing room. Zelina didn't want revenge. She wanted her name back, her dignity, her truth. And now she had it. But just when it seemed over, Kenya walked into her apartment one evening and said, "Zelina, there's something you need to see." She handed her a new file. Inside were emails, dates, and names. Other hotels, other firings, and the same man's name, linked to multiple locations. Turns out, Mr. Caro had a history. Zelina thought it was over. The video had gone viral. The hotel settled. Her name was cleared. But when attorney Kenya Blake handed her a thick manila folder, she realized this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. "This isn't just about your case," Kenya said quietly. "It's bigger than we thought." Inside the file were hotel names, termination records, unexplained resignations, and at the center of them all one name, Samuel Caro. He hadn't just worked at Zelina's hotel. He'd bounced between 7 luxury hotels in the same chain, always as management, always leaving after HR issues, always when a black or immigrant housekeeper was let go under suspicion. Zelina felt her chest tighten. How many women had no camera to protect them? 3 weeks later, Zelina boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Charlotte. Kenya offered to take the case up herself, but Zelina said no. "This time, I need to see it with my own eyes." Charlotte, Miami, Houston, each city, each hotel, a new name, a new victim. In Charlotte, she met a single mother named Clarice. She'd been accused of stealing a diamond bracelet. Fired. No proof. No apology. She had no money to fight back. She worked at a laundromat now. When Zelina told her about Caro, Clarice's eyes filled with tears. "I knew something was wrong," she whispered. "But who was going to believe me?" In Houston, Zelina hit a wall. The hotel's housekeeping manager said Caro only worked there for a month. She was about to leave when an older maintenance worker pulled her aside. "You're not the first to come asking about him," he whispered. "There was another girl, Raina. She disappeared after she got fired." Disappeared. Just up and gone. No goodbyes. We were worried. Zelina felt a chill crawl down her spine. That name, Raina, was in Kenya's file. But her termination form was blank. No reason listed. No follow-up. Zelina flew back to Atlanta that night with the storm building inside her. She and Kenya went through every detail. Clarice's case. Raina's disappearance. The similarities. They built a timeline. Mapped every city. Every job. Every firing. Then came the bombshell. A whistleblower from corporate reached out anonymously. "I've seen the internal memos," the message read. They knew about Caro. Covered it. Buried it. Attached, a redacted memo from 5 years ago. Subject: concerns regarding guest room privacy violations and HR disputes. S. Caro. Zelina sat in silence. They knew. The entire chain knew. 1 week later, Kenya filed a federal motion. A civil RICO case against the hotel group. Racketeering. Discrimination. Negligence. Zelina's story was no longer just a local scandal. It was about to become a national reckoning. The media circled back. But this time, Zelina didn't do interviews. She did outreach. She launched a website, room413.org, inviting others to share their stories. And they did. One by hundreds. She spent her nights reading accounts from women in Oregon, Illinois, Florida. Women she'd never met, who had lived the same nightmare. But then, something terrifying happened. A message arrived on the Room 413 site. From Raina. "I've been hiding for years," it began. "After what happened, I left. No ID. No bank. No trust. I thought I was crazy until I saw your video." Zelina broke down reading the message. But the most chilling part? Raina said she was being followed. She had footage. Proof. But she was scared to come forward. "I want to meet," Raina wrote. "But not in public. There's one place I trust." Zelina agreed. They chose a small motel in Savannah. Nothing fancy. No cameras. Zelina arrived early. Kenya stayed close, watching from a distance. But Raina never came. An hour passed. Then 2. Just as Zelina was about to leave, the motel clerk walked up and asked, "Are you Miss Rowe?" She nodded. He handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a hotel security badge. From Caro. Zelina and Kenya rushed back to Atlanta to examine it. The badge was still active. The metadata showed it was last used 4 days ago, at a hotel Zelina hadn't visited yet. A flagship location, the oldest in the chain. Downtown. 5 stars. They didn't wait. Zelina put on a business jacket and walked straight through the front doors the next morning. The front desk smiled politely. "Welcome. Do you have a reservation?" Zelina gave her name. "No, but I'd like to speak with someone in management." The receptionist froze, typed something, then paused. I'm afraid I can't allow you on property." "Why?" She turned the screen slightly. There, on the guest alert system, Zelina's face. Flagged. Do not allow. Subject, Rose Zelina watch list. Zelina stepped back. She wasn't shocked. She was furious. Because now it was clear. They weren't just trying to bury her story. They were building a wall to keep her out. But what they didn't realize was that this wall, she was about to break through it. Zelina stared at the screen behind the front desk, her own face labeled watch list. They wanted to keep her out, to erase her voice, to pretend she never existed. But what they didn't know was that she had already walked into places far worse than the luxury lobby. She stepped back, coolly, and said only one thing. "Thank you. I've seen enough." Back in her apartment that night, Zelina met with attorney Kenya Blake. They inserted the USB drive Raina had left. It contained grainy footage dated 2 years ago. Hotel hallway. Room 718. Raina shaking, confronting someone. The man in the video. Samuel Caro. "You said you wouldn't do this again." Raina's voice trembled. He lunged for her phone. The video cut off. But what followed was even more damning. A hidden audio clip. 2 voices, Caro and another man. Older. Confident. Cold. "You handle it yet?" "She's gone. Left town." "Good." She was starting to ask questions. "You want me to wipe her termination?" "No, leave it blank. Just enough to make her look guilty." Zelina's blood ran cold. Caro hadn't acted alone. He had orders. There was someone above him. Someone pulling strings. That's when Kenya made a bold move. She didn't go back to court. She went to the press. Within 48 hours, a story hit the front page of the Atlantic Post. Inside the chain, the hidden firings, secret recordings, and silenced workers of America's luxury hotels. Zelina's face was front and center. The footage of room 413. The stories of Clarice, Raina, dozens of others. The backlash was instant. The hotel's PR team issued a vague denial, then backtracked. Their stock dropped 14% in a week. Senators began calling for labor investigations. The National Hospitality Union launched a hotline specifically for housekeepers. And then the biggest domino fell. An internal whistleblower, a former VP, came forward. On live television, he confirmed everything. "Yes," he said calmly. There was a pattern. A silent blacklist. Mostly immigrant and black women. Once they were flagged, it was over. No due process. No second chances. When asked why the company kept it going, he didn't hesitate. Profit. Silence is cheaper than justice. The DOJ opened a probe. Congress held hearings. And room413.org. It exploded. Zelina received over 1,200 testimonies in 2 weeks. She worked with Kenya to file a multi-state class action. People once afraid to speak now had a voice. Because one woman refused to stay silent. One rainy morning, months later, Zelina stood outside the corporate headquarters of the hotel chain, now surrounded by picket signs, press cameras, and workers. She was invited to speak. Her voice calm, firm. "My name is Zelina Rowe. I was a housekeeper for 20 years. I folded sheets. I scrubbed tubs. I smiled at strangers. I was good at my job. But one day, I was accused without proof. Fired without warning. Branded a thief. But a hidden camera told the truth. And that truth led me here." She held up a framed photo. Room 413. "I tell you this not because I want revenge, but because I want you to understand. You can silence one woman, but you can't silence 1,000. The crowd roared. But behind the stage, Kenya approached with news. They've agreed to the settlement, she whispered. 8 figures. Policy changes. Expunged records. Public apology. Zelina nodded, but she didn't smile. Not yet. Did Caro face charges? Kenya shook her head. Not yet, but the feds are closing in. Then she handed Zelina a final envelope. Something else you should see. Inside, a copy of the watch list, a full employee roster, and at the bottom, Caro Boss, the executive who gave the orders. His name? Martin Thorne, president of operations. Still working, still protected. For now. Later that night, Zelina sat on her porch, flipping through the names. She took a deep breath, then picked up her phone. Opened a blank tweet. Typed, "We exposed the hotel, but the real architect is still out there. His name is Martin Thorne. We're not done." She hit send. Within minutes, it was trending, because this time, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every woman who'd ever been erased. And they were fighting with her. If you believe in justice, dignity, and second chances, share this story. Too many voices go unheard. Let's make sure Zelina's isn't one of them.